All right, so welcome back to Breaking Dawn. We are 15 minutes away from the hour of 8 o'clock this Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? Tuesday morning. All right, and right now we're joined by some students from the Hugh Law School, and they are here to tell us about sexual harassment, and they're also part of the Human Rights Initiative.
Yes.
So we're going to talk to them about that. Now, they also have this handbook. It's an assignment you all have been working on.
Yes.
And they've created a handbook about a sexual harassment handbook for use and access to the general public.
Yeah.
Now, sexual harassment, to my knowledge, I don't think there's much legislation in place to deal with it, if any at all.
No.
So right now I want to introduce, and I'm guessing here, you'll tell me if I'm right, Casiana Sankar.
Yes.
Because, well, you're the one who sent the email, so, I decided to get a tick off the bat. I am going to presume that this is Rachel Weeks.
Yes.
This is Sara Martinez, and this is Ansar Mohammed.
Yes.
Nice. Good. So welcome to the program, guys.
Thank
and first off, we want to start with the human rights aspects of things?
Yes.
All right, let's start with the human rights aspect.
Okay, so we are from the Human Rights Law Clinic attached to the Hugh Law School.
Okay.
So this is one of the specialized clinics that Year 2 students are able to apply for. So all the Year 2 students who were interested, we applied for it, and there was a selection process, and they selected 12 students to do it.
Okay.
So for the clinic, we focus on advocacy and honing our attorney skills using the vehicle of human rights education.
Okay.
So that is the entire thrust of the clinic, is to promote advocacy and human rights issues using a street law kind of approach to make it accessible and digestible to the public, rather than, you know, just legal terms up in the air for only some people to understand. So it's for the entire public to understand.
Okay, because I don't think the public really understand what human rights is all about.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to fix.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, you know. Now, as it relates to that, you all also have started this project with sexual harassment and the handbook, right?
Yes.
So we want to go there now? Want to touch on that, or anything else we want to touch on before?
Well, we could talk about the fact that before we got to this point of the sexual harassment handbook, we had other things we had to do before. So we went to schools throughout the country. We went to the south, we went to the east, reached quite Manzanilla, and we did presentations for students in Standard 5 and students in like Form 6.
Okay, great.
So we tailored the presentation for the two age groups. So, you know, one was a more complex than the other, but the children were so, you know, happy to get the information, and it was really well received, and it really warmed our hearts to see their
This was information on sexual harassment?
No. Sorry. This is on general human rights law, because that is the general thrust of the clinic, as she would have just said.
Right.
But now, at this point now, we're going specifically into sexual harassment. Before, it was more general and explaining, you know, their sources of rights, such as the Constitution and the Convention on the Rights of the Child, even the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. These things, which are international sources of human rights law.
All right. I see here you sent me an email that said awareness about the UN Declaration of Human Rights and constitutional rights.
Yes.
Constitutional rights, I just want to touch on that real quickly. I don't mean to shift here.
Sure.
But how many people in Trinidad and Tobago actually know the Constitution? And know their rights, you see what I mean?
Sure.
Well, that's why when we went to the secondary school, we carried our copies of the Constitution, and we presented it to the secondary school, and we said, you all are lucky, you all are getting something that a lot of citizens have no access to, or who have never probably looked at this document.
Right, because how many people, I mean, I don't think many people take the time to really peruse the Constitution.
Yes, it's true.
And therefore, when certain things are happening upstairs, not upstairs, but I don't know what I'm talking about in the parliament and so on and so forth, and amongst politicians, everybody all of a sudden, I have rights! But you don't really know your rights. Even when the police locking you up, you don't even know your rights. I have rights!
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like everybody has rights, all right? Now, in terms of human rights and constitutional rights, this is one thing, and once again, I don't mean to stray, but a lot of people talk about, you know, when people talk about the death penalty and hanging and so on and so forth, you know, the human rights
Argument
comes up.
Yes, it is.
And then there's a counter argument to that.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a very delicate issue in terms of an understanding, you know, what your rights are, what you're entitled to, or so on and so forth.
Very true.
So in terms of the sexual harassment handbook now, How do you all put that together?
Okay, so the aim of the handbook basically is to educate the public on what their rights are in relation to sexual harassment in a digestible format. We don't really have legislation that protects victims of sexual harassment. So what we want to do is we want to make aware to the public the policies that we have in place. So the Equal Opportunities Commission has a guideline, and the Ministry of Labour also has a draft policy, but they haven't been enacted into law yet.
Okay.
So we just want to discuss that. We want to touch on the importance of these things being enacted into law, because I mean, I feel like it's a very relevant topic right now. So we just want to educate, make aware to the public that it isn't law, but you do still have some recourse. The Equal Opportunities Commission, they treat issues of sexual harassment as issues of sexual discrimination.
But how long does that process take? Because that's the next thing, eh?
Yes.
All the lawyers say, long with everything. How long that is it? Because, no, I mean, because I think that's people's main issue. People don't go to court and people don't sue people like how they would in other parts of the world because they say, oh gosh, boy, to go in court and then I go to court, and one time I go to court and this one will show up and that one will show up. So in terms of going to the, let's say you are sexually harassed and you say, you know what, I am going to take this person to task. And you go to the Equal Opportunities Commission. And when you get there, I mean, how long does the process take?
I guess it would depend on the circumstances of the case in each scenario. So that investigation would have to be conducted, certain things would have to be researched before you go to the court. So each individual case might take a different amount of time. So that is also another very relevant issue that needs to be discussed, because at the end of the day, these, I don't want to call them victims, but they need to have some kind of redress when these things happen to them, and they need to feel comfortable making these kinds of reports. So we just want to address that in a booklet, but we also want to put it in a reader-friendly, digestible format so that we could distribute to members of the public. Because like Rachel was saying earlier, and Casiana as well, there are these laws, but how many times, how accessible is it to the public? How understandable is it to the public? So that is the aim of the booklet. That
because that's the hardest thing is to educate the public, you know.
One thing though
we have a lazy public.
One thing is that if they have the policy within their workplace, then it could be addressed by the industrial court, and that would usually work a lot faster. So if there's a sexual harassment policy in place in the workplace where this person has been victimized in terms of sexual harassment,
but to what extent is that?
They could get recourse.
To what extent is that actually implemented at certain
It depends. If there's a workplace policy, then they will enact it to the fullest extent. In terms of the industrial court, they deal with all employment-related matters. So
and just in terms of what sexual harassment is, because I think that's another thing too. You could join in the discussion, you know, and say, no, in the corner, let me tell you something now. You have to put them in the middle, but you answer back, you know, you say, no. Right.
All right. So our project is specifically sexual harassment in the workplace. And we want to define the low threshold of sexual harassment.
Right.
So sexual harassment is uninvited or unwelcome sexual behavior, or behavior of a sexual nature rather, that makes the people feel intimidated or uncomfortable in a way, right? So I like to say that there are 5 ways of breaking down that definition. So we want to know the behavior. Sexual behavior of a sexual nature to you might be different from me. I might feel offended by that, and you might not. So it's subjective in nature. It's based on how the person perceives it to be. The next one is the act. The act is not physical in nature. It can be verbal or non-verbal. So we need to understand a simple thing as catcalling or sending a suggestive text message can amount to sexual harassment. The third is where. It can happen at anywhere, at any time. And we need to understand this. The workplace is a place where people go to do their job and so on, but it can extend to their work-related activities, or other than that, it can happen to any person, any gender. And the last one is the impact. It has a lasting impact on persons. So we need to understand this. And the purpose of our booklet is to make people aware that sexual harassment has a very low threshold. So anything before sexual assault would amount to sexual harassment once you perceive it to be.
Okay, now, I'm ready. All right, but just before we get on the final talk, you just said it goes either way, right? Because in most cases of sexual harassment, people when they hear sexual harassment, they think of a woman being sexually harassed by a man. Yeah. But you have cases. I mean, I have been sexually harassed at work here. I know it. I know what's been going on. I know. So I'm just saying, men are also victims of sexual harassment. You see, they are victims in domestic violence. But for some reason or the other, you know, if a man goes to make a report, they might laugh at him. A woman sexually harassed, they come to complain. You know what I mean? Because of how how we live. You know what is acceptable. So how does a man deal with that, real quick?
And we have an article in our booklet on. It's called Men Too.
Okay.
And the purpose of that is we wanted to raise awareness that there's a fear of embarrassment. They don't want to talk about it. And people don't study the area. While we were researching on the topic, we realized that they don't have statistical data on how men are sexually harassed in the workplace. So what they can do is they need to recognize that is a problem to them and acknowledge it and report it. The next thing is employers should have a safe space for persons to talk about it, and they should be able to, come forward without the embarrassment, because it has a damaging impact on them mentally. And emotionally as well. They suppress it.
So anything else before we wrap?
Yes.
Any
so
information?
I would just like to add that we are updating on our substantive project as we go along on the Human Rights Clinic page. So the name of it is on Facebook. It's the Hugh Law School Human Rights Clinic. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page if anybody would like to keep updated with any progress we've made on the substantive project, the booklet that will be coming out.
Okay, brilliant. And well, thanks a lot for coming from Hugh Law School. I see you all came in lawyer mode. You know, if I was a lawyer, I probably would have been wearing bright colors in court. I'd have probably been in contempt of court just for blinding the judge. I would have done that just for spite. Yeah, I'd have been the most colorful lawyer.
Yeah.
So, so guys, best of luck on the project. I think it's a great project that you're working on.
Yeah.
I think the handbook is a great thing in order to educate the public and to get the information out there. Yeah. And, because there are a lot of places in Trinidad and Tobago, it's all about power, right? And people are often harassed, and they don't even know they're being harassed because they just don't know. All right, so we want to thank Rachel, Casiana, Sarah, and Ansar, and I remember that off the top of my head. All right, Hugh Law School doing great things, and yeah, best of luck in the future, guys.
Thank you so much.
So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to meet Candice, Christine. Nice, yes, we're going to meet. Christina's going to join us. She's one of the new hosts for Breaking Dawn Weekend. Stay tuned for that. We'll be back after this. How do you know me?